Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished bandaging another patient's wound. The makeshift medical tent stood on the edge of a war-torn village in Eastern Europe, where international relief workers struggled to help civilians caught between warring factions. As a trauma surgeon who had volunteered for this mission, Marcus had seen enough suffering to last several lifetimes. The sound of approaching helicopters made everyone in the camp look up nervously. These days, aircraft could mean either supplies or attacks. Marcus continued his work, focusing on a young boy's infected leg wound. He had learned to block out the external chaos and concentrate on what he could control, saving lives one patient at a time. "Dr. Chen, we have an emergency," called Sophia, one of the local translators. She rushed into the tent, her face pale with concern. "There's a woman in the forest. She's badly injured, but she won't let anyone near her. She speaks some English, but she seems terrified of everyone." Marcus looked up from his patient. The boy's wound was clean now, and the antibiotics would handle the infection. "Where exactly is she?" "About half a mile east, near the old stone bridge. The villagers found her this morning, but when they tried to help, she became violent. Not aggressive exactly, but defensive. Like a wild animal protecting itself." Sophia's voice carried a mixture of fear and sympathy. Marcus grabbed his emergency medical bag. In conflict zones, people often develop severe trauma responses that made them distrust anyone in uniform or authority. As a civilian doctor, he sometimes had better luck approaching frightened victims. "Take me to her, but let's go slowly. If she's been through something terrible, sudden movements or loud noises might make things worse." The walk through the forest felt longer than usual. Dead leaves crunched under their feet, and the smell of smoke from distant fires hung in the air. Sophia led him along a barely visible path that wound between ancient oak trees. The forest had probably been beautiful once, before the conflict turned this region into a battleground. They approached the woman appeared to be in her late 20s, with long dark hair that covered most of her face. Her clothes were torn and stained with what looked like blood, though from this distance, he couldn't tell if the injuries were recent. "Ma'am," Marcus called softly in English, stopping about 20 feet away. "My name is Marcus. I'm a doctor. We're here to help you." The woman's head snapped up, and, for a brief moment, Marcus caught sight of her eyes. They were an unusual golden color, bright and alert despite her obvious pain. She pulled back further into the shadows, and he noticed she was favoring her left arm. "No hospitals," she said in accented English. "No authorities. They cannot know I am here." Marcus recognized the tone. He had heard it from refugees fleeing persecution, from people who had been betrayed by those they trusted. "I understand. I'm not with any government or military. I'm just a volunteer doctor with a medical relief organization. I won't report you to anyone." Sophia whispered beside him, "Should I call the others?" "No," Marcus replied quietly. "Too many people will overwhelm her. Wait here and give me some space to work." He approached the woman slowly, keeping his hands visible and his movements predictable. "I can see you're hurt. Will you let me look at your injuries? I have medical supplies, and I promise I won't force you to go anywhere you don't want to go." The woman studied him for a long moment. Marcus could see intelligence in her golden eyes, as if she was evaluating him, measuring his intentions. Finally, she nodded slightly and emerged from the shadows. Up close, Marcus could see the extent of her injuries. Deep gashes ran along her left arm and shoulder, the kind that usually came from shrapnel or broken glass. Her right leg showed signs of a severe burn, and there were bruises across her neck that suggested someone had tried to strangle her. "My name is Elena," she said simply. "I need help, but I cannot explain how these injuries happened. You would not believe me if I told you." Marcus knelt beside her and opened his medical bag. "Elena, I've been working in conflict zones for 5 years. I've seen injuries from weapons I didn't know existed, from situations that seemed impossible to survive. Nothing surprises me anymore." He began cleaning the wounds on her arm, noting that they were deeper than they had appeared from a distance. The edges were clean though, almost surgical in their precision. The burns on her leg showed an unusual pattern, as if something extremely hot had made contact with her skin in perfectly straight lines. "These are serious injuries," Marcus said as he worked.
"How long ago did this happen?"
3 days, Elena replied. She watched him work with those unusual golden eyes, and he noticed she didn't flinch even when he cleaned the deepest cuts. Her pain tolerance was remarkable.
3 days without medical attention for wounds this severe?
You should have developed a serious infection by now, but these look relatively clean. Marcus applied antibiotic ointment and began stitching the longest gash.
Your body seems to heal faster than normal. Elena looked away. I have always been different from others. Stronger. More resilient.
It has been both a blessing and a curse. As Marcus continued his work, he became aware of subtle things that seemed unusual.
Elena's skin felt warmer than a fever patient's, yet she showed no other signs of illness. Her breathing was controlled and steady despite the pain.
Most remarkably, some of the smaller cuts appeared to be healing while he watched. "Elena, I need to ask you something, and please don't take offense.
Are you taking any medications or supplements? Your healing rate is unlike anything I've seen before."
She was quiet for several minutes while he finished the stitches.
Finally, she spoke. "My family comes from an ancient bloodline. We have certain abilities that most people do not possess. It has made us targets throughout history."
Marcus wrapped her arm in clean bandages. He had treated patients who believed in various supernatural or mystical healing traditions. While he approached such claims with scientific skepticism, he had learned that cultural beliefs often played important roles in recovery.
"What kind of abilities?" Elena looked directly into his eyes. "Promise me you will not run away. Promise me you will not call others to capture me."
"I promise," Marcus said without hesitation. In his experience, traumatized patients often needed to feel they had some control over their situation before they could begin healing emotionally.
Elena took a deep breath. "My people are what humans call dragons. We can take human form, but our true nature is different. More powerful. The injuries you see came from government soldiers who discovered what I am.
They captured me and conducted experiments before I escaped." Marcus continued his work, treating this revelation the same way he would treat any patient's personal beliefs.
"That explains why you don't want to contact authorities. If you've been mistreated by soldiers, it makes sense that you'd be afraid of anyone in uniform."
He moved to examine the burns on her leg. The pattern was even stranger up close, 5 parallel lines that looked like they had been made by some kind of heated metal grating.
"This burn is severe, but it's healing cleanly."
Whatever caused it was extremely hot. "They used electricity," Elena said quietly.
"Metal bars heated by electrical current.
They wanted to see how much pain our kind could endure before we lost control of our human shape." Marcus felt a surge of anger at the cruelty she described, whether literal or metaphorical. Medical experiments on prisoners were documented war crimes, and he had treated victims of torture before.
"I'm sorry that happened to you."
No one deserves to be treated that way, regardless of who they are or what anyone believes about them. As he treated her burns with specialized gel and clean dressings, Marcus noticed Elena watching him with surprise.
"You are not afraid of me," she observed. "Should I be? Most humans become frightened when they learn what I am."
Even those who claim to be open-minded usually change their behavior once they know the truth. Marcus secured the bandage around her leg.
"Elena, I've spent years treating people in war zones. I've seen the worst that humans can do to each other.
I've also seen incredible strength and resilience in people who've survived things that should have broken them. Whatever you believe about yourself, whatever makes you feel different or powerful, I'm not here to judge.
I'm here to help you heal." Elena was quiet for a long time.
Marcus finished treating her visible injuries and checked her pulse and blood pressure. Both were strong and steady, though her body temperature remained unusually high.
"There is something else," Elena said finally. "Something you need to know if you are going to help me." "What is it?" The soldiers who captured me are still hunting me. They have equipment that can track my kind. They will find me eventually, and, when they do, anyone helping me will become a target. Elena's golden eyes showed genuine concern. I do not want to put you in danger.
Marcus packed his medical supplies.
How long before they might find you? I do not know.
Perhaps days. Perhaps hours. I have been moving constantly, but I am weakened from my injuries.
I cannot travel much further without rest.
Then, we need to get you somewhere safe where you can recover. Marcus stood up and extended his hand to help Elena to her feet. I know a place where we can hide you until you're strong enough to move on.
Elena hesitated before taking his hand.
When their skin made contact, Marcus felt a brief sensation like touching a warm stone that had been sitting in sunlight all day.
Elena's grip was firm and steady as she stood. You would risk your safety for someone you just met? Someone you know nothing about? Marcus smiled. I became a doctor to help people who need healing. That's all I need to know about you right now. As they walked back toward the village, Sophia fell into step beside them. She had been waiting patiently during the entire medical treatment. Elena tensed when the translator approached. It's okay, Marcus assured her. Sophia is with our relief organization. She can help us find a safe place for you to rest. There is an old monastery about 5 miles north, Sophia suggested quietly. It was abandoned during the fighting, but the building is still solid. No one goes there anymore because of rumors about strange lights and sounds. Elena and Marcus exchanged a look. What kind of strange lights? Elena asked. People say they see fires burning inside the building at night, but when investigators check the next day, they find no signs of any fire. Some believe it is haunted. Marcus looked at Elena with understanding. Sounds like the perfect place for someone who wants to avoid attention. As they made their way through the forest, Marcus found himself thinking about Elena's unusual characteristics. Her rapid healing, elevated body temperature, and extraordinary pain tolerance could potentially be explained by rare genetic conditions. Her golden eyes might be a form of heterochromia. Her claims about being descended from dragons could be a cultural belief or a coping mechanism for dealing with trauma. But he had also learned that in a world torn apart by conflict, the line between possible and impossible often blurred. He had seen enough to know that there were still mysteries in the world that science couldn't fully explain. More importantly, he recognized someone who needed help, someone who was afraid and in pain despite her apparent strength. Whatever Elena's true nature, she was a patient who had trusted him with her safety. That trust was something he would not betray. The monastery came into view as the sun began to set. It was a large stone building with Byzantine architecture, probably several centuries old. Ivy covered much of the exterior walls, and several windows were broken, but the structure appeared sound. No one will think to look for you here, Sophia said. The villagers are too superstitious to come close, and soldiers avoid places that might be booby-trapped. Marcus examined the building's entrance. The heavy wooden doors stood slightly open, and he could see that the interior was dry and relatively clean. This should work for a few days while you recover your strength. Elena stepped inside and immediately seemed more relaxed. The space felt warmer than the outside air, though Marcus couldn't see any obvious heat source. Thank you, she said simply. Both of you. I have not met humans willing to help my kind without asking for something in return. Everyone deserves medical care, Marcus replied. I'll come back tomorrow to check your wounds and change your bandages. Is there anything you need? Food, water, blankets? I can find what I need, Elena said. She touched the stone walls of the monastery, and Marcus could have sworn he saw a brief flicker of warmth pass through her fingers into the rock. This place feels familiar. Safe. Sophia gathered some deadfall wood for a fire while Marcus gave Elena instructions for caring for her bandages. He left her with extra antibiotics and pain medication, though she insisted she wouldn't need much of either. As they prepared to leave, Elena caught Marcus's arm. Her touch was warm but gentle. Dr. Chen, there is something you should understand. If the soldiers find me here, I will not be able to control what happens next.
My true nature may emerge, and it can be dangerous for anyone nearby. Marcus met her golden gaze steadily.
Elena, whatever happens, I want you to focus on healing and staying safe. Don't worry about protecting me or anyone else.
Take care of yourself first. Walking back to the village in gathering darkness, Sophia was unusually quiet.
Finally, she spoke. Doctor, do you believe what she told us about being a dragon?
Marcus considered the question carefully. I believe she's someone who has been through terrible trauma and needs medical care. I believe she's afraid of being captured and hurt again. Whether her family has unusual genetic traits or she comes from a culture with certain beliefs about their heritage, it doesn't change my responsibility to help her heal.
But, what if it's true? What if she really is something more than human?
Marcus looked back toward the monastery, where a warm glow was beginning to emanate from the windows despite the fact that they hadn't left Elena with any electric lighting.
Then, I suppose we'll learn something new about the world. That night, Marcus found it difficult to sleep.
He kept thinking about Elena's injuries and her remarkable pain tolerance. He thought about her golden eyes and the warmth that seemed to radiate from her skin. Most of all, he thought about the genuine fear he had seen when she spoke about the soldiers hunting her. In his medical training, Marcus had learned to observe carefully and question assumptions.
Elena's physical characteristics were unusual, but not impossible.
Her claims about her heritage could be cultural rather than literal. Yet something about her presence had felt different from any patient he had treated before. Whatever the truth, he knew he had made the right choice in helping her. In a world where people were capable of such cruelty toward anyone they perceived as different, showing basic human kindness seemed like the least he could do. The next morning, Marcus prepared a new set of medical supplies and headed back to the monastery. He wanted to check Elena's wounds for signs of infection and make sure she was recovering properly. The forest seemed quieter than usual as he walked the familiar path, and he noticed that birds appeared to be avoiding the area around the old stone building.
As he approached the monastery, Marcus could see that the building looked different in daylight.
The stone walls seemed to have a subtle golden tint, and the air around the structure felt warmer than the surrounding forest. Most remarkably, he could see that some of the ivy covering the exterior walls had grown visibly overnight, as if the plant life was responding to some kind of energy source. Elena met him at the entrance, and Marcus was struck immediately by how much better she looked. The pallor from yesterday was gone, replaced by healthy color in her cheeks. She moved without favoring her injured leg, and her left arm showed full range of motion.
"How are you feeling today?" Marcus asked as he followed her inside.
"Much stronger, thanks to your care," Elena replied. The interior of the monastery was surprisingly warm and comfortable. She had somehow acquired fresh clothes that fit her perfectly, and her hair was clean and styled. Marcus began examining her bandages.
"Elena, where did you get these clothes?"
She smiled mysteriously.
"I told you my kind has certain abilities. We are resourceful when we need to be."
When Marcus removed the dressings from her arm, he stared in amazement. The deep gashes he had stitched yesterday were nearly healed, showing only faint lines where the wounds had been. The stitches he had placed were still intact, but they were no longer necessary. "This is impossible," he murmured, checking the burns on her leg. They too showed remarkable improvement, with new skin already forming over what had been severe tissue damage just 24 hours earlier.
Elena watched his reaction carefully. "Now do you begin to understand what I am?"
Marcus sat back, his medical training warring with the evidence before his eyes.
"Elena, what I'm seeing defies everything I know about human physiology.
Wounds this severe should take weeks to heal, not hours.
Because I am not human, not entirely. My people have genetics that your science does not yet understand." Elena's golden eyes seemed to glow in the warm light filtering through the monastery windows. "We heal quickly, we live longer than normal humans, and we have other abilities that most of your kind would consider impossible." "What other abilities?"
Elena stood and walked to the center of the monastery's main hall.
"Promise me you will not be afraid." Marcus nodded, though his heart rate was accelerating. Elena closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The temperature in the room began to rise noticeably. The golden tint in the stone walls became more pronounced, and Marcus could swear he heard a low humming sound coming from deep within the building itself. When Elena opened her eyes, they were blazing with golden light. Heat shimmered around her body like waves rising from sun-heated pavement. The air itself seemed to vibrate with energy. "We are creatures of fire and earth," Elena said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated through the stone chamber. "We can command elements, heal from injuries that would kill normal humans, and live for centuries. But these gifts come with a price." Marcus found himself backing toward the wall, not from fear, but from the intense heat Elena was radiating. "What price?" "We are hunted. Throughout history, humans have sought to capture us, to study us, to use our abilities for their own purposes. Some worship us as gods. Others try to destroy us as demons. Most simply want to control us." The golden light in Elena's eyes dimmed slightly. "It is why we learned to hide among your people, why we developed the ability to take human form." The temperature in the room began to return to normal as Elena regained control. Marcus could see the effort it took for her to contain whatever power she possessed. "The soldiers who captured me were part of a secret government program. They have been hunting my kind for decades, trying to understand how our abilities work. They want to create weapons using our genetic material." Elena's expression darkened. "They want to make human soldiers who can heal like we do, who can withstand extreme temperatures, who can sense danger the way we can." Marcus processed this information, his analytical mind working to understand the implications. "If what you're telling me is true, then you're essentially a different species. One that's been hiding among humans for how long? Thousands of years. We were here before your recorded history began. We watched your civilizations rise and fall. Some of us tried to help, sharing knowledge about medicine and engineering. Others preferred to remain hidden." Elena sat down across from him. "Most of my people believe humans are too dangerous to trust with the truth about our existence. But you're trusting me. You healed me without knowing what I was. You showed kindness without expecting anything in return. You are different from the humans who hunt us." Elena's golden eyes softened. "There are others like you, but they are rare." Marcus stood up and began pacing the monastery hall, trying to process everything he had learned. The logical part of his mind still resisted accepting the reality of what Elena was showing him. But the evidence was undeniable: her rapid healing, her ability to generate heat, the way plants and stone seemed to respond to her presence. "Elena, if there are government programs hunting your people, then staying here might not be safe for you. They'll have satellites, thermal imaging, other technology that could track unusual energy signatures." "I know. That is why I must leave soon, even though I am not fully recovered." Elena's expression showed concern. "But there is another problem. The experiments they performed on me may have damaged my ability to control my true form. If I cannot maintain human shape, I will not be able to hide among your people anymore. What happens if you can't control it?" Elena was quiet for a long moment. "Then, I become what your legends call a dragon. Powerful, but also dangerous to anyone nearby. My people's true form is not meant to coexist peacefully with human civilization." Marcus felt a chill despite the warm air in the monastery. "How dangerous?" "Fire that can melt steel. Claws that can tear through armor. Size and strength that can bring down buildings." Elena's voice carried sadness rather than pride. "In my true form, I could accidentally hurt someone just by being near them. That is why my kind learned to control the transformation, why we chose to live as humans whenever possible. Is there any way to repair the damage? Some kind of treatment that could restore your control?" "I do not know. My people have healers, but they are hidden in places far from here. I would need to travel hundreds of miles to reach them, and I do not know if I am strong enough for such a journey." Marcus made a decision that surprised him. "Then, I'll help you get there." Elena stared at him in amazement. Dr. Chen, you do not understand what you are offering. Traveling with me means constant danger. The soldiers hunting me will not hesitate to kill anyone helping me. And if I lose control of my transformation. Elena, you're my patient. My responsibility doesn't end just because you can heal faster than normal humans. If you need to reach your people's healers to fully recover, then that's what we need to make happen. Why would you risk so much for someone like me? Marcus thought about the question carefully. Because I've seen what happens when people are hunted and persecuted for being different. I've treated victims of ethnic cleansing, refugees fleeing religious persecution, people attacked for their race or their beliefs. Whether you're genetically different or culturally different doesn't matter to me. Everyone deserves the chance to live without fear. Elena's golden eyes showed deep emotion. You truly mean this? I do. But I need to know more about what we're dealing with. Where exactly do your people live? How would we get there? What kind of opposition should we expect? Elena stood and walked to one of the monastery windows. In the distance, they could hear the sound of helicopters approaching. It appears we may need to find out sooner than expected. Marcus joined her at the window. 3 military helicopters were visible on the horizon, heading directly toward their location. How did they find you so quickly? They have equipment that can detect the energy signatures my people give off. The healing process and the demonstration I gave you may have created enough of a signature for them to track. Elena's expression was grim. We need to leave immediately. Which direction? North, toward the mountains. My people have safe houses along the old trade routes that connected Europe with Asia. If we can reach the first way station, we can contact my clan for help. Marcus grabbed his medical bag while Elena gathered the few supplies she had acquired. As they prepared to leave through the monastery's rear entrance, the sound of helicopters grew louder. Dr. Chen, Elena said as they reached the back door. I need to tell you something important. If we are captured, you must tell them you were forced to help me. Tell them I threatened to hurt you if you refused. They might spare your life if they believe you were coerced. I'm not going to abandon you if things go wrong. Elena stopped and faced him directly. Listen to me carefully. The soldiers hunting me are not like regular military personnel. They are part of a program that considers my people to be non-human entities with no rights. They will torture and kill anyone who helps us, not to gather information, but to send a message to others who might consider showing us kindness. The helicopters were close enough now that they could hear individual rotor beats. Marcus and Elena slipped out the monastery's rear entrance and began moving through the forest, staying low and avoiding open areas. How far to this first way station? Marcus asked as they jogged through the trees. 40 miles through mountain terrain. If we can stay ahead of them until nightfall, we might have a chance. Elena seemed to be gaining strength as they moved, her stride becoming more confident and powerful. Behind them, the sound of helicopters circled the monastery. Soon they heard voices shouting in multiple languages, and dogs barking as search teams spread out into the forest. They have tracking dogs, Marcus observed, picking up the pace. My scent will be easy for them to follow, Elena agreed. But there are ways to confuse dogs if we can reach running water. They ran in silence for the next hour, pushing through dense undergrowth and navigating fallen logs. Marcus was impressed by Elena's endurance. Despite her recent injuries, she showed no signs of fatigue and seemed to know instinctively which paths would provide the best cover. As they reached a ridge overlooking a valley with a stream running through it, Elena suddenly stopped and held up her hand for silence. Marcus crouched beside her, listening intently. The forest around them had gone completely quiet. No bird songs, no rustling of small animals in the underbrush, even the insects seemed to have stopped making noise. They are close, Elena whispered. And they have brought something with them that my people fear. What? Hunters. Not human hunters, but creatures created in laboratories using genetic material from captured members of my kind. They are designed specifically to track and kill dragons. Elena's golden eyes showed genuine fear for the first time since Marcus had met her. Dr. Chen, I need you to understand something. If these hunters find us, I may have no choice but to fight in my true form. When that happens, you must get as far away from me as possible. Marcus could hear movement in the forest below them now. Large shapes moving through the trees with predatory grace. Whatever was down there didn't sound like dogs or human soldiers. Elena, whatever those things are, we'll face them together. I'm not leaving you to fight alone. Elena turned to look at him with an expression of profound gratitude mixed with deep sadness. You are a remarkable human, Marcus Chen. Your people would be fortunate if more of them possessed your courage and compassion. The sounds from below grew closer, and Marcus caught a glimpse of something moving between the trees. It was larger than a human, with a distinctly non-human silhouette. Whatever the government had created to hunt Elena's people, it was unlike anything he had ever seen. If we survive this, Marcus said quietly, you need to tell me everything about your people and these programs hunting you. The world needs to know what's happening. If we survive this, Elena replied, her golden eyes beginning to glow with inner fire, you will learn exactly what it means to travel with a dragon. The creature that emerged from the forest below them defied every principle of natural evolution Marcus understood. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with muscular limbs that ended in claws designed for gripping and tearing. Its head was elongated like a wolf's, but the intelligence in its eyes was disturbingly human. Most unsettling was its scent. It carried the smell of laboratory chemicals mixed with something that reminded Marcus of burnt metal. Elena crouched perfectly still beside him, but he could feel heat radiating from her body as her stress levels increased. Her golden eyes tracked the creature's movement with predatory focus, and Marcus realized he was seeing her own hunting instincts activate. Hybrid, Elena whispered, barely breathing the word. They took genetic material from my people and combined it with human and animal DNA. Creating these abominations is considered the worst kind of sacrilege among my kind. 2 more creatures appeared, flanking the first. They moved with coordinated precision that spoke of intelligence rather than mere animal cunning. Each carried scars across their bodies, suggesting they had been used in combat situations before. Can they track your scent from this distance? Marcus asked quietly. Yes, but scent is not their primary tracking method. They can sense the energy signature that all of my people emit. The closer they get, the more accurate their tracking becomes. The lead creature stopped directly below their hiding position and raised its head, testing the air. Marcus could see that its nostrils were larger than normal, designed for enhanced sensory input. When it looked up toward the ridge where they were hiding, its eyes reflected light like a nocturnal predator's. It knows we're here, Marcus observed. Elena nodded grimly. They all know. They are deciding whether to attack or to call for reinforcements. As if responding to her words, the lead creature threw back its head and released a howl that sounded like a combination of wolf song and human scream. The sound echoed across the valley and was answered by similar calls from multiple directions. How many of them are there? Marcus asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. Hunting packs typically consist of 6 to 8 individuals. They are designed to work together to bring down targets much larger and stronger than themselves. Marcus counted at least 5 different howls responding to the first creature's call. Elena, I think we need to move. Now. They began retreating along the ridge, staying low and using whatever cover the terrain provided. Behind them, Marcus could hear the creatures beginning to climb the slope with inhuman speed and agility. There, Elena pointed toward a rocky outcropping about half a mile ahead. If we can reach those caves, I might be able to create a defensive position. Might be able to? It will require me to use abilities that may attract more attention. But, at this point, stealth is no longer an option. They ran hard across the uneven mountain terrain. Marcus's medical training had included wilderness survival courses, but keeping up with Elena required pushing his physical limits. She seemed to grow stronger as they moved, her stride becoming more fluid and powerful. The sounds of pursuit grew closer. The creatures were gaining ground despite the difficult terrain.
Marcus caught glimpses of movement in his peripheral vision, dark shapes bounding between rocks and trees with unnatural grace.
Dr. Chen, Elena called as they ran. When we reach the caves, you must stay behind me no matter what you see.
These creatures were designed specifically to kill my kind, which means they are dangerous enough to threaten humans as well. They reached the rocky outcropping just as the first creature appeared on the ridge behind them. Up close, Marcus could see more details of its horrific construction. Its limbs were too long for its torso, giving it an unsettling insectoid appearance despite its mammalian features. Surgical scars ran along its spine, suggesting extensive modification after its initial creation. Elena led him into the largest cave opening, which extended back into the mountainside further than Marcus could see. The interior was dry and showed signs of human habitation from centuries past, carved symbols on the walls and fire-blackened stones arranged in what had once been hearths. "This is one of my people's ancient rest stops," Elena explained as she examined the cave walls. "The symbols are markers indicating this place is under dragon protection."
"Will that deter those creatures?"
"No. They were created without the knowledge of our traditions or the ability to feel appropriate fear." Elena placed her hands against the carved symbols, and Marcus could swear they began to glow with faint golden light. But these caves were prepared for defense long ago. The temperature in the cave began rising rapidly. Marcus had to step back as Elena's body temperature climbed to levels that made the air around her shimmer with heat waves. Her golden eyes blazed like small suns, and, when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that resonated through the stone itself. "The ancient words are still active," she said with satisfaction. "My ancestors carved more than symbols into these walls." Outside the cave, the first creature appeared at the entrance. It hesitated when it saw Elena, some instinct warning it that she was more dangerous than she appeared. But, after a moment, it began stalking forward, its claws clicking against the stone floor. "Elena," Marcus said urgently.
"Whatever you're going to do, do it now."
Elena raised her hands, and Marcus felt the air pressure in the cave change dramatically. The carved symbols on the walls began glowing brighter, and he could hear a low humming sound that seemed to come from the rock itself.
"I call upon the ancient protections," Elena said in a language Marcus didn't recognize.
The words seemed to hang in the air, charged with power. "I invoke the right of sanctuary that was established when these mountains were young." The creature at the cave entrance stopped as if it had hit an invisible barrier. It tested the air with its enhanced senses, then stepped back with what looked like confusion or fear. "The ward is holding," Elena said, switching back to English. "But it will not last long against creatures bred to hunt my kind." Marcus could see more creatures gathering outside the cave entrance. They paced back and forth, testing the invisible barrier that kept them from advancing. Their frustration was visible in their increased agitation and the way they clawed at the stone around the cave opening.
"How long do we have?"
"Minutes, perhaps less. The ward draws on energy that has been stored here for centuries, but those creatures are designed to drain and disrupt our power sources."
Elena turned to face the cave's interior.
"We need to reach the deep chambers where stronger protections may still be active."
They moved deeper into the cave system, guided by Elena's apparent familiarity with the layout.
Marcus used his phone's flashlight to navigate, but Elena seemed to need no additional illumination. She moved confidently through passages that twisted and branched in directions that would have confused anyone without intimate knowledge of the caves.
"Elena, how do you know these tunnels so well?"
"All of my people learn the locations of sanctuary caves during our youth. This particular system connects to others that stretch for hundreds of miles through these mountains.
Our ancestors created an entire network of safe passages when humans first began hunting us with organized armies.
They reached a circular chamber deep in the mountainside. The walls were covered with intricate carvings that seemed to tell a story in pictures and symbols. A raised platform in the center held what looked like an altar made of stone that had been polished to mirror smoothness.
"This is a heartstone chamber," Elena explained as she approached the altar.
"The most sacred and protected spaces my people created." Marcus studied the wall carvings while Elena examined the altar. The images showed what appeared to be large winged creatures interacting with smaller humanoid figures. Some scenes depicted cooperation and exchange, while others showed conflict and destruction. These carvings show the history between dragons and humans, Marcus observed. Yes. They record both the golden ages when our peoples worked together and the dark periods when fear and misunderstanding led to war.
Elena placed her hands on the altar's surface. This chamber has not been used for many years, but the power source should still be active. The altar began to glow with warm golden light as Elena made contact with it.
Marcus could feel energy flowing through the stone around them, and the air itself seemed to become charged with potential.
What exactly does this place do?
It amplifies the natural abilities of my people. In a heartstone chamber, we can access power that would normally require years of training to control.
Elena's eyes reflected the golden light emanating from the altar.
But using it also means revealing our location to any of my kind within hundreds of miles. Behind them, Marcus could hear sounds of the creatures breaking through the outer cave wards. Their howls echoed through the tunnels, growing closer as they navigated the passage system.
Elena, they're coming. How much time do you need? Just a few more moments to establish connection with the Heartstone.
Elena closed her eyes and placed both palms flat against the altar surface. The glow intensified, and Marcus could see light beginning to flow through veins in the stone walls that he hadn't noticed before. The first creature appeared at the chamber entrance just as Elena completed her connection with the Heartstone. It hesitated when it saw the blazing altar, some deep programmed instinct recognizing the power source even though it had been designed to hunt dragons. Elena opened her eyes, and Marcus stepped back involuntarily. Her golden irises had expanded to fill her entire eyes, and heat radiated from her body in waves that made the air around her dance and shimmer. "You were created to hunt my people," Elena said to the creature, her voice now carrying harmonics that made the stone chamber resonate like a musical instrument. "But you were created by those who do not understand what we truly are." The creature stalked forward, its claws leaving scratches in the stone floor. Behind it, Marcus could see others gathering in the passage, preparing to attack in coordinated formation. Elena raised one hand, and flames appeared dancing between her fingers. Not the orange-red flames of ordinary fire, but golden-white flames that hurt to look at directly. The temperature in the chamber climbed rapidly.
"Last chance to withdraw," Elena warned the creatures. "I do not wish to destroy you. You are victims of the same forces that hunt my people." The lead creature responded by leaping forward with claws extended. Elena moved faster than Marcus's eyes could follow, sidestepping the attack and placing her burning hand against the creature's flank. The hybrid screamed in a way that sounded disturbingly human as golden fire spread across its body. Instead of burning it, the flames seemed to be unmaking its very structure, causing it to dissolve back into component elements. "Elena!"
Marcus called out as more creatures poured into the chamber.
"Stay back!" Elena commanded.
The Heartstone altar blazed brighter, and Marcus watched in amazement as Elena began to change. Her human form expanded, becoming taller and more powerfully built. Her skin took on a golden metallic sheen, and her hands elongated into claws that could have torn through steel. Most remarkably, her spine extended and widened into what could only be described as the beginning of wings. "This is what your government fears," Elena said, her voice now carrying the deep resonance of something much larger than her human form suggested. "This is why they create abominations to hunt us." The remaining creatures attacked simultaneously, but Elena was no longer the injured refugee Marcus had found under the bridge. Connected to the Heartstone's power, she moved with inhuman speed and strength. Golden fire flowed from her claws, dissolving the artificial creatures before they could close distance for effective attacks.
Marcus watched in fascination and growing concern as Elena fought.
Each use of her power seemed to drive her further from human form and deeper into something that belonged to legends and nightmares. Her golden eyes now blazed like small suns, and when she opened her mouth, he could see rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh from bone.
The last creature fell to Elena's fire, its artificial components breaking down into constituent molecules.
Elena stood in the center of the chamber, breathing heavily and radiating heat that made the air around her shimmer. "Elena," Marcus called softly.
"It's over.
You can change back now." She turned to look at him, and, for a moment Marcus wasn't certain she recognized him. Her golden eyes showed intelligence, but it was alien intelligence that measured him as a potential threat rather than an ally.
Elena, it's Marcus. Your doctor. You're safe now.
Recognition slowly returned to her eyes, and Marcus could see her struggling to regain control of her human form.
The process was obviously difficult, requiring tremendous concentration and effort. The Heartstone, Elena said, her voice still carrying dangerous harmonics.
I need to disconnect from it, but I cannot do it alone.
The power is too strong, too seductive.
Marcus approached the altar carefully, noting that the stone surface was now hot enough to cause burns.
What do you need me to do? Place your hands over mine on the altar's surface. Your human energy will help ground me, give me an anchor point to return to human form.
Marcus positioned his hands above Elena's on the blazing stone. The heat was intense, but not quite unbearable. He could feel energy flowing between Elena and the Heartstone, and, when he made contact, that energy began to stabilize and calm.
Focus on being human, Marcus said quietly. Think about human concerns, human limitations, human connections.
Remember why you chose to live among my people rather than remaining in your true form. Elena's breathing began to slow and deepen. The blazing light in her eyes dimmed to merely golden, and the temperature in the chamber started to drop toward tolerable levels. I remember, Elena said, her voice becoming more recognizably human. I remember choosing compassion over power, connection over dominance. Marcus watched as Elena's expanded form gradually contracted back to human proportions. The metallic sheen faded from her skin, and her claws retracted into normal human hands.
The transformation was obviously exhausting, leaving her pale and shaking. How do you feel?
Marcus asked as he helped her step away from the altar.
Drained. Using the Heartstone without proper preparation was dangerous.
I could have lost myself completely in the transformation.
Elena leaned against the chamber wall, breathing heavily. Thank you for bringing me back.
Marcus examined her for signs of injury from the fight. The creatures hadn't managed to wound her, but the energy expenditure had clearly taken a toll.
We should rest here for a while before moving on. We cannot stay long.
Using the Heartstone will have sent a signal that every dragon within 500 miles can sense. Some will come to investigate, but others might report our location to the authorities hunting my people.
Are there dragons who work with the government programs? Elena's expression darkened.
Some of my people believe that cooperation with human authorities is the only way to ensure our survival. They provide information and assistance in exchange for protection from the hunting programs.
She paused, looking sad.
They do not understand that collaboration only makes the hunters more effective at capturing those of us who refuse to submit. Marcus sat down beside her, processing everything he had witnessed.
Elena, what I just saw you do, that was incredible.
You moved faster than physics should allow, you generated temperatures that could melt steel, and you transformed your body into something completely different. That was only a fraction of what my people can do when we access our true nature. In full dragon form, we can fly at speeds that break sound barriers, we can generate fire hot enough to turn sand into glass, and we are strong enough to move mountains if necessary.
Then, why do you live as humans? Why not use that power to protect yourselves? Because power without restraint leads to destruction.
My ancestors learned that lesson when they nearly destroyed early human civilizations through careless use of their abilities.
Elena looked at the wall carvings that depicted various interactions between dragons and humans.
We chose to limit ourselves, to live quietly among your people, because we realized that coexistence required mutual respect and careful restraint. Marcus studied her face, noting the exhaustion and the lingering traces of the transformation she had undergone.
But the government programs hunting you don't show any restraint.
They're trying to exploit your abilities for military purposes. Yes, and that is why some of my people argue that we should abandon our policy of restraint. They believe we should reveal ourselves openly and use our power to force humans to acknowledge our rights.
Elena sighed deeply.
But that approach would lead to a war that neither of our species would survive. They sat in contemplative silence for several minutes, listening to the deep quiet of the mountain cave system. Marcus found himself thinking about the implications of everything he had learned. If dragons were real and had been living among humans for centuries, it meant that human history was far more complex than anyone imagined. Elena, you mentioned that your people have healers who might be able to help you regain full control of your transformations.
How far is it to reach them?
The nearest sanctuary is still 30 miles through mountain terrain.
But, after using the Heartstone, I should be strong enough to make the journey.
Elena stood up, testing her balance and energy levels.
The question is whether you still wish to travel with me after seeing what I truly am. Marcus stood as well, shouldering his medical bag.
Elena, I've seen you fight to protect both of us from creatures designed specifically to kill dragons. I've seen you struggle to maintain your humanity despite having access to incredible power.
If anything, I respect you more now than I did before. Elena's golden eyes showed surprise and gratitude. You are not afraid of what I might become?
I'm more afraid of what those government programs might do if they succeed in capturing and exploiting your people. Someone needs to document what's happening and make sure the world knows about these hunting operations. They began making their way back through the cave system, moving carefully to avoid disturbing any remaining wards or protective systems. Elena led them through passages that eventually opened onto a different section of the mountain, well away from where they had entered. The creature's handlers will assume we were killed when their hybrids were destroyed, Elena explained as they emerged into afternoon sunlight. It will give us some time before they realize we escaped.
Marcus looked out over the mountain landscape stretching ahead of them.
The terrain was rugged and challenging, with steep slopes and deep valleys that would make travel difficult even under normal circumstances. 30 miles through mountains, Marcus said, checking his supplies.
How long should that take? For humans traveling on foot, perhaps 3 days. For someone traveling with a dragon, considerably less time. Elena's eyes showed a mischievous glint.
I may not be able to achieve full transformation yet, but I retain enough of my abilities to make travel much more efficient.
What do you mean?
Elena gestured for him to follow her to a rocky ledge overlooking the valley below.
Dragons can manipulate more than just fire and earth.
We can also influence air currents and modify our physical capabilities for extended periods. Marcus watched as Elena closed her eyes and took a series of deep, controlled breaths. The air around her began to move in patterns that defied normal atmospheric conditions. Small dust devils formed and dissipated, and he could feel pressure changes that made his ears pop slightly. Wind currents can be directed to assist with movement across difficult terrain, Elena explained. And human bodies can be temporarily enhanced to handle greater physical stress without injury. You're talking about using your abilities to help me keep up with you.
Exactly.
But it will require physical contact to maintain the enhancement effect.
Are you comfortable with that level of trust? Marcus considered the question seriously. Elena was offering to use supernatural abilities to modify his human physiology temporarily. In any normal context, such an offer would be terrifying.
But, given everything he had witnessed, it seemed like a reasonable solution to their travel challenges.
What would the enhancement involve?
Increased endurance, better balance, improved resistance to cold and fatigue. Nothing that would permanently alter your human nature, but enough to allow you to travel at dragon-assisted speeds through mountain terrain. Marcus extended his hand toward Elena.
Then, let's go find your people's healers. Elena smiled and took his hand in hers.
Immediately, Marcus felt a surge of energy flow through his body. His vision became sharper, his breathing deeper and more efficient, and his muscles felt stronger and more responsive than they had ever been. This is incredible, Marcus said, examining his hands and noting that his reflexes seemed significantly faster. The effect will last for several hours, but we should begin moving immediately to take advantage of the enhancement period. They set off across the mountain terrain at a pace that would have been impossible for normal human travel. Marcus found that he could navigate steep slopes and uneven ground with an ease that defied his previous experience with wilderness hiking. Elena moved beside him with fluid grace, occasionally adjusting their route to take advantage of wind currents or terrain features that would speed their progress. Her knowledge of the mountain landscape was encyclopedic, and she seemed to know the location of every hidden trail and shortcut. "Elena," Marcus said as they covered ground at a remarkable rate.
"How many of your people are there worldwide?"
"Fewer than there once were, but more than humans might expect.
My kind tends to live in small communities hidden in remote locations.
We reproduce slowly, but we also live for centuries, so our populations remain relatively stable."
"Do you have your own government? Your own leaders?"
"We have councils of elders who provide guidance on matters affecting all dragons."
"But we are not as organized as human governments."
"Each family group manages its own affairs, and we come together only when major decisions must be made." They crested a ridge and began descending into a valley that showed signs of ancient human habitation. Stone foundations and terraced fields suggested that the area had once supported a significant population. "This valley was once home to humans who knew about my people," Elena explained. "They lived alongside dragons for several generations, sharing knowledge and resources."
"What happened to them?"
"War. Not between dragons and humans, but between different human factions. One side believed dragons were too dangerous to tolerate, while the other saw us as valuable allies. The conflict destroyed the community and forced both species to retreat to more isolated locations." Marcus studied the abandoned ruins as they passed through the valley.
"It seems like there have been multiple attempts at coexistence throughout history.
Many attempts, few lasting successes.
The fundamental challenge is that my people represent both tremendous opportunity and tremendous threat to human civilization.
Some humans want to exploit our abilities, others want to destroy us completely, and very few simply want to coexist peacefully." They reached the far end of the valley as the sun began to set behind the mountain peaks. Elena led them to a sheltered area beneath an overhanging rock formation where they could rest without being visible from aerial surveillance.
"We have covered good distance today," Elena said as she checked their position against landmarks only she could recognize. "The sanctuary is perhaps 8 miles ahead, through a canyon system that will provide excellent cover."
Marcus sat down and assessed his physical condition. Despite traveling at an extraordinary pace over difficult terrain, he felt energetic and alert rather than exhausted.
Elena's enhancement was remarkably effective. "How long will this enhanced condition last?"
"Several more hours, which should be sufficient to reach the sanctuary before dawn."
"My people prefer to conduct important business during night hours when human activity is minimal."
As darkness settled over the mountains, Marcus found himself thinking about the incredible journey he had undertaken. Less than 48 hours ago, he had been a conventional medical volunteer treating refugees in a war zone. Now he was traveling through mountains with a dragon, heading toward a hidden sanctuary where he would meet beings that most humans considered mythological.
"Elena, when we reach your people's healers, what happens next?
Will they be able to restore your full control over transformations?" "I believe so, but the healing process may require days or weeks of intensive treatment."
"During that time, you would need to remain in the sanctuary as our guest." Elena paused thoughtfully.
"That decision would not be mine alone to make. The sanctuary elders would need to determine whether it is safe to allow a human to learn the location of one of our most important hidden communities."
"And if they decide it's not safe?" Elena was quiet for a long moment.
"Then, they would need to modify your memories to remove knowledge of our existence and relocate you to a place where you could resume your normal life without being targeted by the government programs hunting my people." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air.
"You're talking about wiping my memory."
"It would be done gently, and you would retain all memories except those related to dragons and the events of the past few days. You would remember being a doctor, your medical training, your family and friends.
You would simply forget that you ever met me." "But I would lose all memory of this experience? Of learning that dragons exist? Of everything we've been through together?"
"Yes. It is the standard protection my people use when humans accidentally discover our existence." Most humans who encounter us have their memories modified and are relocated to safe situations where they can live normal lives. Marcus processed this information, trying to understand his own reaction to the possibility of losing these memories. The logical part of his mind recognized that returning to normal life might be the safest option. But the idea of forgetting Elena and everything he had learned felt like a profound loss.
Is there any alternative? Any way for humans to retain knowledge of your people without posing a security risk?
Very rarely, humans are accepted into dragon communities as permanent members. But such decisions require unanimous approval from sanctuary councils, and they are not made lightly. The human must demonstrate exceptional trustworthiness and commitment to protecting dragon welfare above their own interests.
What would that involve? Complete severing of ties to human society.
No contact with family, friends, or former life. Full integration into dragon culture and acceptance of our laws and customs. It is essentially choosing to become part of a different species socially, even though you remain human biologically. Marcus stared up at the star-filled mountain sky, wrestling with possibilities he had never imagined. The choice Elena was describing would mean abandoning everything he had ever known in exchange for life among beings whose existence was one of the greatest secrets in human history.
How often do humans make that choice? Perhaps once in a generation.
Most humans who learn about us prefer to return to their normal lives, even if it means losing memories of their time with dragons. They resumed traveling as the moon rose, following Elena through canyon passages that twisted and turned through the mountain landscape. The enhanced night vision that came with Elena's physiological modifications allowed Marcus to navigate terrain that would have been impossible in darkness under normal circumstances.
Elena, can I ask you something personal?
Of course.
Why did you choose to live among humans rather than remaining in dragon communities? What drew you to human society?
Elena was quiet for several minutes as they climbed a particularly steep section of trail.
My people live for centuries, Dr. Chen. We experience time very differently than humans do. Years pass like seasons, and decades like years. That sounds like it would provide incredible perspective. It can.
But it can also lead to a kind of emotional distance from immediate experience. When you know you will live for 500 years or more, individual moments become less significant. Elena paused to help Marcus navigate a difficult climbing section. Human society operates at a pace that makes every day, every encounter, every relationship meaningful.
So you lived among humans to experience life at human speed? Partly. But also because I was fascinated by human creativity and adaptability. Dragons tend to think in terms of centuries and millennia.
We plan carefully, act deliberately, and change slowly. Humans improvise constantly, create new solutions to problems in real time, and transform their entire civilization within single generations.
Marcus could see the appeal of experiencing life from such different temporal perspectives. Do other dragons share your interest in human society? Some do.
But most of my people believe that close contact with humans is too dangerous, both for us and for them. They point to the government hunting programs as evidence that humans cannot be trusted with knowledge of our existence.
And what do you believe?
I believe that both species have individuals capable of great wisdom and great foolishness. The challenge is finding ways for the wise members of both groups to work together while protecting everyone from the foolish ones. They reached the entrance to what appeared to be another cave system, but Elena led him past it toward a seemingly solid rock wall. As they approached, Marcus could see that what looked like solid stone was actually an optical illusion created by carefully arranged rock formations.
The sanctuary entrance, Elena explained as she guided him through the hidden opening.
Beyond this point, we will be in dragon territory. You must allow me to speak for both of us and follow my lead in all interactions. Marcus nodded, understanding that he was about to enter a world where human social conventions would not apply. As they passed through the concealed entrance, he caught his first glimpse of a dragon sanctuary, and realized that nothing in his human experience had prepared him for what he was about to encounter. The passage opened into a vast underground chamber lit by sources that defied immediate explanation. The ceiling stretched away into shadows, supported by pillars of natural stone that had been carved with intricate patterns. But, most remarkable were the inhabitants moving through the space with fluid grace. Dragons in human form, like Elena, moved alongside others who had retained more of their true nature, beings with metallic skin, elongated limbs, and eyes that blazed with inner fire. Some showed partial transformations that blended human and dragon characteristics in ways that were both beautiful and alien.
"Welcome to Sanctuary Valdris," Elena said softly. "One of the oldest continuously inhabited dragon communities in the world." Marcus stood at the entrance to Sanctuary Valdris, overwhelmed by the scope and beauty of the hidden community.
The vast underground chamber stretched further than his enhanced vision could penetrate, with multiple levels connected by gracefully carved staircases and natural rock formations. Soft golden light emanated from crystalline formations embedded in the walls, providing illumination that was both warm and practical. Elena guided him along a main thoroughfare that had been carved from the living rock thousands of years earlier. Dragons in various forms moved past them with fluid grace, some appearing almost human while others displayed characteristics that were unmistakably draconic. Marcus noticed that conversations stopped as they passed, and golden eyes tracked their movement with intense curiosity.
"They can sense that you are fully human," Elena explained quietly. "It has been many years since a human has entered this sanctuary."
They approached a central area dominated by a raised platform where several elderly dragons sat in apparent council. These beings had chosen to retain more of their true nature than most others in the sanctuary, displaying scaled skin that shimmered with metallic highlights and eyes that blazed with ancient wisdom. Elena of the Western clans called one of the council members, her voice carrying harmonics that made the stone chamber resonate.
"You returned to us under unusual circumstances." Elena bowed respectfully. "Honored Elder Kirin, I seek healing for damage inflicted by human hunters.
I also request sanctuary for the human doctor who saved my life and aided my escape." Elder Kirin's gaze shifted to Marcus, and he felt as though he were being evaluated by intelligence that spans centuries of experience. "Dr. Marcus Chen," she said, using his name though he had not been introduced. "You have knowledge of our existence, yet you do not show fear."
"Interesting."
Marcus stepped forward carefully, uncertain of proper protocol but determined to show respect.
"Elder Kirin, I'm honored to be welcomed into your sanctuary. Elena has explained that my presence here creates security concerns for your people." "Indeed it does."
Elder Kirin gestured for them to approach the council platform.
"But, your actions in protecting Elena and your professional dedication to healing create obligations that we cannot ignore." A second elder spoke, his voice deeper and more resonant than the first. "I am Elder Thane. We have heard reports of the hybrid hunters deployed against our people.
Elena, show us the extent of your injuries, both physical and metaphysical." Elena moved to the center of the platform and closed her eyes in concentration. Marcus watched as her human form began to shift slightly, revealing the damage that had been inflicted during her captivity. Scars became visible along her arms and back, but more disturbing were areas where her skin showed discoloration that suggested something had interfered with her natural healing abilities. The humans used energy weapons designed specifically to disrupt draconic physiology, Elena explained as the elders examined her condition. "They also injected me with compounds that interfere with transformation control. I can maintain human form, but accessing my true nature has become dangerous and unpredictable." Elder Kirin extended one clawed hand toward Elena, not quite touching but clearly sensing something about her condition.
"The damage is extensive.
They have introduced foreign elements into your system that create conflict with your natural energy patterns."
"Can it be healed?"
Marcus asked, earning surprised looks from several council members at his boldness in speaking without being addressed. Elder Thane regarded him with what might have been approval. "Your concern for Elena's welfare is noted, Dr. Chen. Yes, the damage can be healed, but the process will require weeks of intensive treatment using methods that your human science would consider impossible."
"What kind of methods?" "Energy cleansing through direct contact with heartstones far more powerful than the one Elena used during your escape. Ritual purification involving elements that exist only in dragon territories."
and genetic repair using techniques our people developed before human civilization began recording history. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and concern.
Elena will recover completely? If she submits to the full healing process, yes.
But there are complications that extend beyond her individual case.
Elder Kirin gestured toward other council members.
The hunting programs targeting our people have become more sophisticated and aggressive. The creatures that pursued you were only the latest development in ongoing efforts to capture and exploit our kind.
How extensive are these programs? Multiple governments have established research initiatives focused on dragon genetics and abilities.
They coordinate their efforts through international agreements that treat my people as non-human entities with no legal rights or protections.
Elder Thane's expression darkened.
Some of our own people have been coerced into cooperation through threats against their human integrated family members.
Marcus felt a chill of understanding. They're using dragon-human relationships as leverage to force cooperation. Exactly.
Dragons who have chosen to live among humans, who have formed attachments to human communities, can be controlled through threats of exposure or harm to their adopted families.
Elena moved closer to Marcus.
This is why bringing you here was so significant.
My people will assume that you and I have formed the kind of attachment that could be exploited by the hunting programs. And have we? Marcus asked quietly. Elena met his gaze directly.
Yes, I believe we have. You have shown me kindness and courage that I did not expect from a human. If something happened to you because of your association with me, I would feel responsible. Elder Kirin observed this exchange with interest.
Dr. Chen, you now understand the complexity of your situation.
Knowledge of our existence makes you a target of the same forces that hunt us. Emotional connection to one of our people makes you a potential tool for coercing cooperation.
What are my options?
3 possibilities, Elder Thane replied. First, memory modification and relocation to a safe location where you can resume normal human life. Second, permanent integration into our community with complete severance from human society. Third, participation in active resistance against the hunting programs, accepting the risks that come with opposing well-funded government operations. Marcus looked around the council chamber, noting that other dragons had gathered to listen to the discussion. He could see curiosity, concern, and calculation in their golden eyes as they evaluated him.
What would active resistance involve? Using your position as a human medical professional to gather intelligence about the hunting programs. Providing medical assistance to dragons who have been injured by government forces.
Helping to establish safe houses and escape routes for my people who are being targeted. Elder Kirin's voice carried warning. It would mean living with constant danger and the knowledge that capture would result in interrogation, experimentation, and eventual elimination.
And if I choose memory modification?
You would wake up in a hospital in a different country with memories of being injured during a humanitarian mission. Your medical credentials would be intact, and you would be provided with a position at a respected medical facility. You would remember being a doctor and helping refugees, but all knowledge of dragons would be removed. Marcus thought about Elena's healing process and the weeks of treatment she would require.
If I choose integration or resistance, could I help with Elena's medical care?
Your human medical knowledge would be valuable during her healing process, Elder Thane acknowledged. Our healing methods are powerful, but we lack detailed understanding of how they interact with damage inflicted by human technology. Elena stepped closer to the council platform. Honored elders, I request permission to speak privately with Dr. Chen before he makes his decision. This choice will affect both of our lives significantly. Elder Kirin nodded approval. Elena will show you to guest quarters where you may rest and consider your options. The council will reconvene tomorrow evening for your decision. Elena led Marcus through winding passages carved deep into the mountain. The guest quarters were spacious chambers with comfortable furnishings that somehow managed to blend human and draconic aesthetic sensibilities. Soft lighting came from crystal formations that responded to their presence, and the temperature remained perfectly comfortable despite the underground location. Marcus, Elena said as they settled into chairs carved from single pieces of stone.
I need you to understand what each of those choices really means. I'm listening.
If you choose memory modification, you will be safe, but I will lose the only human who has ever shown genuine understanding of my people's situation. If you choose integration, you will be trapped in our world forever, unable to return to human society even if you later regret the decision.
And if I choose resistance?
Then, we will both be fighting a war against forces that have overwhelming advantages in technology, resources, and legal authority. The hunting programs operate with government support and unlimited funding. They can deploy military assets, satellite surveillance, and political pressure to achieve their goals.
Marcus stood up and walked to a window that looked out over the sanctuary's main chamber.
Dragons moved through the space below with purpose and grace, some in fully human form while others displayed varying degrees of their true nature. Children played games that involved minor feats of magic, and adults engaged in activities that seemed to blend human and draconic cultural traditions.
Elena, if the hunting programs succeed in capturing and exploiting your people, what would that mean for both species? Dragons forced to serve human governments would become weapons of unimaginable destructive power.
Wars would be fought with dragon fire instead of conventional explosives.
Our genetic material would be used to create enhanced human soldiers who combine draconic abilities with human aggression. And if your people chose to abandon restraint and fight back openly?
Then, human civilization would face opponents capable of melting cities and controlling natural disasters. The conflict would devastate both species and possibly make large portions of the planet uninhabitable.
Marcus turned back to face Elena. So the current situation, with dragons hiding among humans and the hunting programs operating in secret, is actually the most stable option? For now, yes. But it's not sustainable long term.
The hunting programs grow more aggressive each year, and more of my people argue for abandoning secrecy in favor of open conflict.
What would change the equation? What would make peaceful coexistence possible? Elena considered the question carefully.
If enough humans knew the truth about our existence and actively opposed the hunting programs, it might force governments to acknowledge our rights and negotiate treaties rather than pursue military solutions.
That would require proving to the human population that dragons exist and that some of them live peacefully in human society.
Yes, but it would also expose every dragon who has integrated with human communities to potential retaliation from the hunting programs. The risk would be enormous.
Marcus sat down across from Elena. What do you think I should do? I cannot make that choice for you, Marcus. Each option involves sacrifices that will define the rest of your life. Elena's golden eyes showed deep concern.
But I will tell you that having someone with your medical expertise and moral courage working against the hunting programs could save hundreds of dragon lives. And having someone with my knowledge and emotional attachment to you could be used to force your cooperation if I'm captured.
That is also true.
They sat in contemplative silence for several minutes. Marcus found himself thinking about the patients he had treated in conflict zones, people whose lives had been destroyed by forces beyond their control. Elena and her people faced similar circumstances on a much larger scale.
Elena, if I choose resistance, would we work together? If the council approves, yes.
My healing will take time, but once it's complete, I would be one of the most effective operatives our people could deploy against the hunting programs.
Because of your combat abilities?
Partly. But also because I understand human society well enough to move through it without detection.
Most dragons who choose resistance lack sufficient familiarity with human culture to operate effectively in urban environments.
Marcus realized he was already leaning toward the resistance option despite its obvious dangers.
What kind of specific activities would be involved?
Gathering intelligence about government research facilities where dragons are being held. Establishing safe houses and escape routes for my people who need to relocate quickly. Providing medical care to dragons who have been injured during capture attempts or while escaping from research facilities.
Medical care using both human and dragon healing methods? Exactly.
Your knowledge of human anatomy and physiology combined with our understanding of draconic biology could save lives that neither approach could save alone. Marcus walked to another window that provided a view of deeper sections of the sanctuary. In the distance, he could see what appeared to be workshops and laboratories where dragons pursued various crafts and studies.
Elena, if I choose resistance, what happens to my family? My friends? My medical career?
Your death would be staged in a way that provides closure for your loved ones. You would essentially become a different person with new identity documents and background history. Contact with your former life would be impossible.
That's a high price.
Yes, it is. But the alternative may be watching both our species destroy each other through fear and misunderstanding. A soft chime echoed through the guest quarters, indicating that evening meals were being served in the sanctuary's common areas. Elena suggested they join the community for dinner, which would give Marcus an opportunity to observe daily life among dragons and better understand what integration might involve. The dining hall was a vast chamber where hundreds of dragons gathered at tables carved from single pieces of stone. The food was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced, dishes that somehow satisfied both human and draconic nutritional requirements while appealing to taste preferences he hadn't known he possessed. The enhancement I provided to help you travel through the mountains also modified your digestive system slightly, Elena explained when she noticed his surprised reaction to the food. You can now properly appreciate cuisine designed for our people's physiology.